Take a look at this. Out of that Park Place and breaking as we are taking it in, Paramount counters Netflix with a $108 billion hostile takeover bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. This out of thatparkplace.com. Trevor Denning is the man with rapidity in terms of writing this out. Paramount, led by David Ellison, isn't giving up its bid to win Warner Brothers. And I would go a little bit further and say, no, they're not giving up. They're winning. Late last week, the Warner Brothers board announced it had accepted an $82.7 billion proposal from Netflix. Isn't that quaint? It's an offer Ellison tells shareholders is an inferior proposal. He has since launched an attempted hostile takeover after the historically brutal bidding war. What's amazing about this is the first weekday back from it, they're not playing around anymore. Enough of your little frou-frou rounds of bidding. Now, we're sick of your little auctioneering crap. Now, the answer is we're going straight to the shareholders and we're buying this sucker outright. This morning, Ellison made it clear that he's prepared to outbid Netflix by a substantial amount. Ellison is offering shareholders $30 per share, all in cash, for the entire company. Netflix is only interested in Warner Brothers and not the linear TV networks, which are set to be spun off into a separate company this coming year. Folks are also covering this on CNBC. Alex Sherman, David Faber over there doing a fantastic job talking about launching the hostile bid for Warner Brothers. And I love this quote from Ellison, going to finish what we started. Going to finish what we started. Guys and gals, your thoughts so far on this one in terms of can Netflix respond? Does Netflix have any way to bid again? I mean, but remember, this has all been, we've all played the game with Warner Brothers and David Zaslav, and fine enough, right? Zaslav, as Valiant Renegade says, is a genius business guy, whatever Hollywood thinks of him. But we've all played the game. We did round one, we did round two, we did round three, and as soon as somebody not named Paramount beat them out, that round's over. Now, Paramount says, no, enough of that. We're going straight to the shareholders. Can Netflix respond to this, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, they've been able to respond to, I guess, whatever Warner Brothers Discovery actually wanted to play here. It's very interesting how David Zaslav has played this. It has created a lot of open questions. It has created a lot of regulatory concerns from various interested parties. We have now I guess we're going to get into it eventually, but the 45th president of the United States and 47th now getting into it and saying, hey, look, listen, I prefer, one or the other, or I'm going to be involved in this process. So I think because of how fast this is actually moving, Netflix not only can respond, but I think they really are forced into a position in which they should, because it is such a profound move to make this strike, that being Paramount Skydance and this hostile takeover bid, that I don't think they have really a choice but to respond in kind.
Absolutely.
I think everybody could have predicted the intense scrutiny, antitrust scrutiny that was going to occur because of what Netflix was trying to do. But I just want to introduce a figure into the conversation, a financial figure that we didn't mention. Let's talk about how much this bid is to hostily take over. $108.4 billion.
That's a little bit.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of bit. Okay, I'll go with it. That's a lot of bit.
Of money. Yeah. That's and that is more than 20 billion more than what Netflix has offered. And that's with some financial tomfoolery going on there. It's actually 73 billion, and they got to 82 billion by saying that Discovery Global will take on some of that debt before they sell to Netflix. So it's not even 83 billion on the part of Netflix.
Can I tell you what I think precipitated this, though? Because it's really fascinating how this all played out and why it went so quickly. This is something we talked about in the on the Pro channel early on Monday. On Variety, it says Trump calls Ted Sarandos a fantastic man, but says Netflix Warner Brothers deal would give streamer very big market share. It could be a problem. Now, this is a quote that he made while he was on the red carpet of the big Kennedy Center honors, where he honored people like Sylvester Stallone, and so this was a comment he made, and I took great note of it because Sarandos, who's the head of Netflix, he went and tried to do a charm campaign with Trump, and he thought he had won over the Orange Man. Trump is a big fan of the Ellisons, right? And not entirely. I mean, there's some things that he gets irritated with them about, South Park, for example, but for the most part, they are in simpatico, and he gets along with them very well. When Trump came out Sunday evening and said that it could be a problem for Warner Brothers and Netflix to merge. And then 12 hours later, the Ellisons decided to wage the hostile takeover immediately. It makes you wonder, Was this the permission to do so? Was this the opportunity for shareholders to now say, we've got a way bigger offer, and we're already hearing from President Trump that this other deal might not go through, we should take it? What do you guys think about any kind of coordination, collaboration on this?
Well, I mean, the Ellisons are big donors, right? They have obviously had conversations with Trump about this in the past, and so I think it is reasonable to presume that maybe some of the happenings going on that Paramount only made light of like hours before the official winning bid was announced by Paramount Skydance. Perhaps either Larry or David were having conversations with Trump. We know that they met with somebody from the United Arab Emirates. I can't remember exactly who, but we know that they met at the White House in kind of an official capacity. I would presume that I think the Ellisons got wind of this maybe earlier than what they announced, and so to have those conversations with Trump, I think was most prudent on their part. But that the machinations of maybe a response or some kind of strategic meeting perhaps took place in order to facilitate this. I don't know to what extent, obviously, but we do know that they're big donors to Trump and huge supporters as well, and personal friends.
Now, MJ, one of the strangest things about this is that we actually reached a point where Hollywood was begging Trump to come save them, essentially, right? I don't want to say that outright, but we were in this odd place where if Netflix wins, then cinemas are probably over. And suddenly, the Ellisons, who are despised by many of the movie stars, well, they didn't look so bad, MJ. So what do you think Hollywood's reaction is going to be to this now?
It's really scary. I've tried keeping up with the story as much as I could, but it's so there's so many conflicting issues. People have to remember too, Trump is our president. Before that, he's a businessman. He's all about making the Benjamins, right? So people with that, like-minded are going to consult with him. And this is a huge topic of discussion. And it's really, really scary for the sake of, us, growing up, going to the movies, Warner Brothers being producing some of the most iconic films ever in history. This is really scary. I don't personally want to see Netflix, win this war. I hope they don't, but I have no idea what could come out of this, to be honest.
I think it's the end of the studio system as we know it if Netflix wins this one. I mean, the theatrical model, I think, goes away in 5 to 10 years. And then where are we at now? I mean, for the entire industry as it currently exists, I think this is super bad for Netflix to actually get this. We know that there are regulatory hurdles that are put in place right here. I think Valiant Renegade did a beautiful job talking about how I think HBO Max is number 4 in subscriber count and Netflix number 1. So from a regulatory standpoint, it's like, oh my goodness gracious, you want to take on the 4th biggest streamer in the United States. And by the way, I mean, look at the Warner Brothers box office this year. 7 films at least over the 40 million mark? They are the biggest box office player currently this year. Now you want to absorb that within a company that has made it known that they want to get rid of the theatrical model. I just, from a regulatory standpoint, if the government has to regulate this to any extent in order to facilitate a free and open economy, how could you even green light this, understanding that an entire industry will go away if this actually goes through? Absolutely.
Culture, you had something you want to add to that?
Just that the giant chunk of financing here coming out of the UAE or the investment accounts of the RIF or FRI or whatever you want to call that, the 3 sovereign funds from Saudi Arabia, that's $21 billion right there that they're playing with, which is why they're pushing a cash offer for a hostile takeover at this time. I think there's no reason to waste time. There is a lot of questions around antitrust that you guys are all addressing just a moment ago that I think everybody's going to be pressing on. Does this acquisition destroy, the theaters? Does it destroy cinema? Does it destroy the theatrical model? And the answer to that question is yes. And that's always been the intention behind Netflix, is to destroy, the theatrical model. They have zero interest. So I think everybody kind of landed at the same conclusion, especially Valiant last night, where this spells disaster or doom for an industry that's already in kind of a tailspin. Because I would say Hollywood's been in a tailspin for quite some time, especially based on the numbers that we've seen for 2025 alone. I mean, total box office gross is, just under $8 billion. They announced it was over $8 billion today, but I think that was largely on projections for the next couple of weeks. And I don't necessarily believe that that's accurate. They have big problems because, again, as Pro pointed out, I mean, you didn't have a lot of films crossing the $300 million gross domestically. In fact, very few. And crossing the $200 million gross was for domestic was kind of a big deal, which would now include Zootopia 2, which finally did it this week. So if you were Warner Brothers, like I said, you're in first place. Or were in first place going into Zootopia and headed into Avatar Fire and Ash. So, kind of you're the leader in the clubhouse. This is not something that Paramount would find, a position Paramount would find itself in when it's essentially in last place trying to play catch up. So I think most people are going to respond negatively to Netflix. In fact, I reported a story this morning, Pro, that you might be interested in, is that there are a bunch of anonymous players in Hollywood that are against this deal and are willing to, talk about it with anybody who's willing to listen. I thought that was kind of intriguing this morning.
Absolutely. The other thing that's intriguing, if you look on the screen here, is, and we talked about this the other day, it's amazing that when Netflix made their offer and the press went wild and said, "Oh, Netflix has won, it's over, it's done." Isn't it amazing that the Netflix stock dropped? No financial advice being given, of course. People have heard us say that many times. But isn't it amazing that the Netflix stock dropped? Now that it looks like Paramount is going to win, and the quote there is, "We're here to finish what we started." I mean, that's very strong. Isn't it amazing that Paramount stock goes up with a crazy bid? I mean, does anybody really believe? I know Warner Brothers, as you said, Culture, they're a big, big deal. This is now, we're a third higher than what Disney paid for Fox. I mean, this is crazy. And yet, the Paramount stockholders are clearly excited about this.
Everybody's behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we know where the source of this money is coming from? Do we know if there's any Middle Eastern interests in this?
21 billion of it is Middle Eastern.
Right. Okay. That's what I was wondering. And was it true what Paramount was saying about, maybe losing this by 75 cents per share, which is kind of absurd. I mean, it was very clear that David Ellison would have done anything to get this and would have answered Zaslav for the demand that he actually had. So to prefer Netflix to this extent is quite something. Perhaps the spinning off of Discovery and those networks and so forth were part of that process. I'm actually not quite sure, but legally, and the case to shareholders, by the way, because I believe they had to approve this as well, that there's multiple checks that this has to go through. It's really hard to make the case that they go forward with Netflix when Paramount Skydance is putting up this much money.
Absolutely. Jonas, I'm going to let you wrap this up as the genius you are when it comes to these kinds of topics. Jonas, what do you think we're going to do? I mean, is this now, are we just going to flat out see Paramount Skydance get a hold of Warner Brothers, or do you anticipate Netflix returning back with an even bigger offer?
Well, I think it becomes a question of what are the shareholders' interests over there at WB. If this is, in fact, as Alex Sherman is saying at CNBC, the exact same offer that Paramount made privately, and now publicly it's $20 billion higher and a lower regulatory hurdle here, I see the possibility of success. I see a higher possibility of success for Paramount. And I think that there must be some outside element that makes Netflix more favorable. And to a hint that what Culture might have been implying there, BlackRock or Blackstone or whatever the giant holding companies are, they might be more interested in Netflix because they have greater control as opposed to the Ellisons. So.
All right, folks, we're to keep an eye on this one. This is truly a fork in the road. There are two ways to go here. Netflix, and there are reasons. Listen, if you're pro streaming and you want everything to go to streaming and you're tired of cinemas and maybe you think that's a hokey kind of thing anyway, Netflix buying this up would be a big deal. And if you want Netflix to take it to Disney, you want Netflix to win. But if you want to savor and save the cinematic experience and see what happens with the Ellisons, then, Paramount Skydance is the way to go. But one way or the other, Hollywood is going to make a huge change. Somebody's going to win, and we are in the end game for how this goes. One thing is for sure, that Warner Brothers Tower is going to be owned by a new somebody, and we're done with the silly, frilly kind of auction stuff that Zaslav was doing. Fine enough, he made a lot of money off of it, but we're moving on to something new, and that is buying that sucker outright.
Thanks for watching That Park Plays News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media accounts.